The Miller place sat just south of the Chattahoochee, where red clay backroads curved through rows of Alberta and O. Henry peaches. For 5 generations Millers had coaxed fruit from the sandy loam, and when August came around, everything, lunch breaks, church socials, even marriages paused for the Pine Ridge County Fair. The highlight of that fair was the Peach Pie Jubilee, and the Jubilee revolved around one man, Judge Raymond Bud Tolliver. Bud was a slight fellow with an ample moustache and a voice that could hush a goat auction. He'd been handing out blue ribbons for 27 years, claiming to tell a freestone from a cling in a single bite. Every grower and baker within 3 counties fought for his praise, none more so than Hank Miller, whose peaches Bud once compared to sunlight you can hold. Hank's daughter, 17-year-old Lila, loved that quote so much she'd etched it on the chalkboard by the packing shed. The fairgrounds smelled of sawdust and cotton candy the morning the world slipped sidewise. Lila balanced a crate of just-picked Sunsplash variety on her hip while weaving past the Ferris wheel line. Her best friend Daisy, whose parents ran the hardware store, tagged along licking blue snow cone syrup from her knuckles. "Your dad still pacing?" Daisy asked. "Claims he's counting inventory." Lila rolled her eyes. "He's on worry patrol as usual." Hank had reason. This Jubilee was the first since a late frost had wiped out half the county's early crop, and rumors floated that several orchards had bought up Miller's seconds, blemished fruit sold cheap, then disguised them in pies. A Miller victory mattered more than bragging rights. It would remind Pine Ridge who still grew the finest peaches around. At noon, the pies were paraded into the dairy barn, where Bud sat at a gingham-draped table. 16 entries stood at attention, each glossy with egg wash, vents sculpted into hearts, stars, Georgia outlines. Number 11, the one with a delicate lattice and sugar crystals sparkling like quarry dust, was Hank's. Lila and Daisy squeezed between bleachers and hog pens to watch. Bud sampled 2 pies, jotting notes, murmuring pithy comments the crowd strained to overhear. When he forked a slice from number 11, a hush settled. He chewed, eyes shut in bliss, lifted a thumbs up at Hank, then froze. The thumb drooped. Bud's face blanched the grey of storm clouds. He tried to speak, making a wet click, and toppled sideways, chair clattering against the concrete. For a moment the barn was silent except for a confused squeal from a nearby piglet. Then people screamed. Daisy yanked Lila backward as volunteers swarmed. Someone dialed 91111. Someone else shouted for water. Leela caught her father's gaze across the scrum. She had never seen fear land so hard on a man's face. Paramedics arrived. Fast County Fair First Aid Station was 20 yards away, but not fast enough. 10 minutes later, Judge Raymond Bud Tolliver was zipped into a black bag. Sheriff Cal Jenkins, barrel-chested in sweat duck in khaki, commandeered the scene. He confiscated the remaining slices, scribbled names and sealed the entries in plastic coolers. When he reached Hank, he spoke low, but Lila still heard. "Your pie's part of the chain of evidence." Hank's shoulders fell. Evidence of what? Possible poisoning. By dusk, rumors sprouted like kudzu after rain. Some insisted Bud had heart trouble. Others claimed he'd choked on a pit shard. But folks who'd stood close whispered a sharper tale. The odor of bitter almonds, faint but unmistakable, on Bud's final breath. Cyanide. The word shot through Pine Ridge quicker than gossip on bingo night. By morning, 3 television vans blocked Main Street, and the headline Gwinnett News Now bannered across screens. "Fair judge dead after pie-tasting fool play. Suspected." Sheriff Jenkins shot the Jubilee indefinitely and sent the pies to the state lab. Meanwhile, nobody could overlook the obvious. Bud keeled over after sampling the Miller entry. Tuesday dawned hot and windless, but the orchard buzzed colder than a walk-in cooler. Tractor engines idled, while pickers huddled in talk clusters. Hank emerged from the farmhouse porch pale as flour. "That judge was my friend," he told the workers. "We do our job. Keep our heads and let the sheriff sort truth from hogwash. But when the crew dispersed, he slumped onto an overturned bucket. Lila slid beside him, knees knocking against. Daddy, folks'll twist any story handed to 'em. We can't let them twist ours. He managed a weak smile. I know you, Peanut. Your mind's already chasing answers. Somebody used our pie to kill that man. Whoever did it might still be walking free, looking for a next slice. Sheriff Jenkins has half the county's IQ tied up directing traffic for reporters. We gotta help. Hank looked ready to forbid it. Then something softened in his eyes, the way it did when he realized his daughter wasn't a child content with chores and sat flashcards anymore. Ask questions if you must, he said, but promise me no grandstanding. Cross my heart and hope to... She caught herself, given circumstances. I promise. Daisy volunteered as sidekick without being asked. They claimed a table at Chipper's Diner, ordered peach milkshakes, because irony, and unfurled a notebook. Let's start with motives, Daisy said, twirling her straw. Who benefits from Bud dropping dead mid-bite? Rival orchards. Lila tapped a pen. Our blue ribbons help sales. Knock us out and your fruit looks sweeter. Could be a baker, Daisy added. Remember that Atlanta blogger, Chelsea Carr, who called Bud's palate passé? Maybe she wanted new judge blood. Layla wrote possibilities down, but her gut tugged elsewhere. Cyanide comes from peach pits, she murmured. Someone could extract it easy if they knew how. Who has a mountain of pits lying around? Every orchard, Daisy shrugged, including us. But who's been messing with pits lately? They paid and headed for the library archives. A brick building smaller than some suburban garages, but blessed with reliable Wi-Fi. Lila searched peach pit cyanide extraction home method. The results were unsettlingly abundant. One recipe, she could only think of it as such, used common solvents, coffee filters, and a crock pot. This is horrifyingly doable. Soon, Daisy whispered. Lila scrolled further. A forum post titled Perfect Bitter Almond Flavor for Old-Time Recipes included identical steps, then advised, use sparingly, can be lethal. The username was Peachy Breeze 17. You're 17, Daisy noted. Coincidence. Lila clicked the profile. Posts discussed orchard equipment and late frosts. She found a picture, a young woman grinning beside crates stamped Breeze Hollow Farms, 1 county over. Lila clicked the profile. Posts discussed orchard equipment and late frosts. She found a young woman grinning beside crates stamped Breeze Hollow Farms, 1 county over. Lila's phone buzzed. Dad, she stepped outside. Hank's voice sounded stretched thin. Ugh. Sheriff's coming for second interview. This possibility of a birthday. That's not huge. I'm guessing? Not begging? Orders dropped by 30% overnight. I'm on something, she assured him. Back soon. Inside, Daisy had uncovered more. Breeze Hollow Farms was purchased last year by a man named Carlton Reed, a big city investor touting ag tourism experiences. Locals claimed he let fruit over-ripen, favoring selfie stations over soil science. He's desperate for credibility, Daisy surmised. And Bud gave him none, Lila recalled. At last year's Jubilee, Reed placed 12th. Bud called his peaches bland as a beige couch. They drove Daisy's faded Chevy toward Breeze Hollow, wheels spitting dust. The gate stood open, banner reading, Pick Your Own Paradise. But the orchard rows were eerily empty. At the processing shed, they spotted Carlton Reed, a tall man in designer sunglasses, barking into a phone. Near him loitered a girl about Lila's age, Peachy Bree's 17 in the flesh, clutching a clipboard. Lila approached. "Excuse me? Mr. Reed?" He turned, irritated until he saw her Miller Orchards t-shirt. "Well, if it isn't royalty." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We're conducting informal outreach," Lila said, improvising, trying to understand how the tragedy's affecting growers. "Tragedy?" He removed his sunglasses slowly. "You mean the poisoning pinned on your family?" "No one's pinned anything." He flipped a hand. "As far as customers are concerned, the verdict's in." Daisy interjected. "That verdict hurting your numbers too?" "Actually," Reed said, "our tours tripled. Folks figure we're safer. Sometimes misfortune weeds itself out." He inclined his head toward Lila. "No offense." The girl with the clipboard shifted. She wore earbuds but had clearly been listening. Lila gave her a tentative smile. "You bake?" The girl blinked at Reed, then back at Lila. "I test recipes for the event barn." Her name tag read Brooke. "Pie judge said your peaches lacked flavor last year," Lila said gently. "You tweak anything for this season?" Brooke's throat bobbed. "Trying different extracts," she murmured, "but I should get back." Reed's phone rang again. He dismissed them with a nod. "Good luck with your legal mess." Driving away, Daisy smacked the steering wheel. "That man's moral compass spins like a carnival ride." "Brooke's scared of him," Lila said. "And she knows about extracts. Did you see her wrist?" "No." "Chemical burn. Faint, but there." That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She padded to the kitchen for water and found Hank at the table, pie tin before him, untouched. "Couldn't bear to throw it out," he admitted. Lila slid beside him. She studied the crust, the filling, the vent slits that spelled M for Miller. It looked identical to every pie she'd watched her father bake since kindergarten. Then she noticed something new. A faint gloss on the underside of the top crust. "Daddy, did you brush butter inside the lattice this time?" He frowned. "No, only egg wash outside." They cut a wedge and peeled crust from fruit. A tacky layer clung between, translucent pale gold. Hank tasted the tiniest speck and grimaced. Not butter, some kind of glaze. Someone doctored the slice Bud ate. Leela's heart pounded, meaning the poison wasn't in filling, it was painted after baking. She re-examined memory. Cooling pies left unattended on the staging table while bakers chattered nearby. Anyone could have slipped close. Next morning she visited Sheriff Jenkins, presenting the crust, scrap zipped in a sandwich bag. He listened but sighed. "Chain of custody's shot, Leela. Defense lawyers swatted away." "Then let me get you evidence that sticks." "Miss Miller," he warned, "I know young people feel invincible. Don't go chasing trouble." "Trouble's already chased us," she said, and left. Back in her room, she opened the recipe forum again, scanning Brooke's posts. One thread discussed clear, peach-flavored syrup for pastry shine, referencing a chemical called amygdalin precursor to cyanide, found in pit. Brooke mentioned boiling it down to disguise as melted jelly. "Liquid glaze," Lila whispered. She texted Daisy. "Operation Midnight Jam?" Daisy replied with a skull emoji and a thumbs up. They waited until the orchard lights dimmed, then met behind the hardware store where Daisy's cousin parked his silent electric golf cart. The ride to Bree's Hollow felt stolen from a spy movie. Only crickets and the whir of wheels. A single bulb glowed in the processing shed. Through dusty window they saw Brooke hunched over a hot plate, swirling amber fluid in a mason jar. Sweat beaded her brow despite a box fan. "Piece of cake," Daisy mouthed, but Lila felt her stomach flip. She knocked. Brooke jumped, almost dropping the jar. When she recognized them, relief and fear flashed across her face, like alternating traffic lights. "I didn't do it for him," she blurted, before either visitor spoke. "For Carlton?" Leela guessed. Brooke nodded, tears gathering. He said the farm needed a headline, something to ruin the competition. He found a video about pit extract, told me if I wanted a college fund I'd help. I thought it'd just make Bud sick, not— She covered her mouth. So you painted the glaze? Daisy asked softly. I sneaked in after pies cooled. Carlton distracted the volunteer judge's assistant. It took 2 seconds. Lila's rage flared, but grief overpowered it. Brooke was barely older than she was, another farmer's kid, twisted by someone else's ambition. You have to tell Sheriff Jenkins, Lila said. Brooke backed away. Carlton will ruin my family. He owns the mortgage. I'll protect you, Lila vowed, though she had no idea how. Headlights flared outside. A black SUV skidded to a stop. Carlton Reed stormed in. What the hell is this? He barked. His gaze darted to the jar, to Brooke, then to the intruders. He grabbed Brooke's arm. You keep your mouth shut. Brooke winced. Daisy stepped between them. Let her go. Reed raised a hand as if to push past, but Lila snatched her phone. Smile, Carlton, she said, camera light blinking. Your live stream's rolling to my followers. Say hi. She had no followers, her account was private, but he couldn't know. He dropped Brooke's arm. You're making a mistake, kid. His voice lowered into something oily. Delete that now, we walk away. There's cyanide in that jar behind you, Lila said. I'm sure Sheriff would love a sample. Sirens wailed in the distance. Daisy had discreetly tapped her smartwatch. SOS earlier. Blue lights soon strobed through orchard branches. Sheriff Jenkins strode in, deputies flanking. Reed tried to bluster, but Brooke, sobbing, handed over the jar and a printed recipe sheet. She recounted everything, the extraction, the bribe, the moment Bud collapsed. Her statement poured out like floodwater behind a broken dam. Deputies cuffed Carlton Reed. As he was led out, he glared at Lila. You just tanked your family's future. The press will ravage you for harboring a killer pie. Lila squared her shoulders. We don't fear truth. It tastes sweeter than any peach you'll ever grow. The next weeks unfurled in whirlwinds. Forensic proof tied Reed to emails ordering solvents. Brooke received immunity for testimony, and news anchors crowned Lila the Peach Orchard Sleuth. Tour buses returned to Miller Orchards, this time to snap selfies with Hank and his heroic daughter. One humid Saturday, Sheriff Jenkins appeared carrying a bakery box. And from the fair committee, he said, wanted the winning pie delivered properly. Hank opened the lid. Inside sat a lattice-topped beauty, sprinkled with coarse sugar. A blue ribbon curled against the crust. Lila cut 3 slices, handed one to the sheriff, one to her father, and kept the last. They clinked forks like champagne flutes. The first bite tasted of sun-warmed fruit, cinnamon and victory. Judge Bud would have approved, Hank said, voice thick. Lila smiled toward the orchard, where branches bowed heavy with fresh peaches, each one a promise of resiliency. Here's to justice, she whispered, and took another bite, savoring the flavor of a future reclaimed.